Good afternoon, everybody. This is Julianne Grant from Razorleaf, and welcome to our Tech Tuesday. Happy New Year to everyone here. I haven't spoken with you yet. Wishing you the best for 2024. So today we're here to kick off our Tech Tuesday series with Milan Obradovic. He's going to be talking to us about the Release 29 and showing us an interesting demo that he will be sharing some information in just a minute. Couple housekeeping notes. We are recording this. We will be posting this in the next 24 to 48 hours and sending this recording to anyone who registered as well. But we encourage you to share this with people that you know, and if you find this valuable. And then we'll be taking some questions in the questions panel. So if you have questions, please enter them in the panel. And then at the end, I'll be sure to go through them and get those answered for you with Milan. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Milan. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Julianne. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Tuesday, first one of the new year. Excited to see everyone back online. Should have a good one for you guys today. So, like Julianne mentioned, today we're going to be covering what's new in Aras release number 29. And alongside that, we're going to do a little bit of demo around reporting functionality that's been added. And now that there's a few more pieces that have been introduced, we're going to do a little deeper dive today. Get you guys a better understanding of how you can use the new reporting tools to build your reports, and then take those reports and build some really cool dashboards alongside those. Alongside that, we're going to be covering a little bit about Aras and their end-of-life policy, as well as which releases are going to be specifically reaching end-of-life soon. And then following that, we'll obviously have time for questions. We'll do a little bit of wrap-up to highlight some of our upcoming events, as well as do a little bit of promo for the upcoming ACE conference in March. So with that, let's get on the road. Alrighty, so 3 key things got introduced with Innovator 29. The first 2 are 2 new updates to 2 applications within the system. That's going to be the Aras reporting and also 3D visualization. So when it comes to dashboards and reporting, there's a few new chart types that have been introduced, those being line charts and also stacked bar and column charts, sorry. Alongside that, there's some new tools to help you, fancy up your reports, make them look a little better, and also kind of improve the usability of your reports as well. Alongside that, we have some new updates to Responsive Form Designer. Those of you who have been attending Tech Tuesday, this has been a kind of ongoing process of Aras moving towards this new adaptable form designer. So what they have added are actually 2 new pieces that were added to the classic form designer and the past few releases, and that's going to be field descriptions and help text. So those things will be tools to help your users, know what this field is really intended to do. If it's blocked out, let them know that this might be server assigned or automatically assigned by some sort of metadata on the field or on the form. So alongside that, we have the next release of 3D visualization. The main notes from this release is really just continuing to add more support for more CAD platforms and the new releases that came out the past year. So first things first, getting off to dashboards and reporting. First note here is improved report editing. So in the past, you would create your report, select all the data that you wanted, and it would spit out a table. But users can now customize that table. They can grow and expand columns, slide them around, put them wherever they really need, sort of how you would modify a search grid within Aras. So when you're creating your report table, you can go and preview that table, and you can go ahead and adjust those columns as much as you want while it's in edit mode. This allows your users, or your report admins, more control over how they want that data to be represented, and really allows you to doctor it up and make it look a lot better. Alongside that, we have our new chart dashboard widgets. So we have the ability now to add line charts to our reports and our dashboards. And another thing that's added with these line charts is the ability to have multiple lines. So if we wanted to compare trends of how long it takes an ECO to finish in 2020 to now versus a DCO from 2020 to now, that is functionality that's now available to you and relatively easy to do. Alongside that, we have stacked bar and column charts to allow you to compare 2 different data sources for similar measures. Alongside that, like I mentioned earlier, we have some improvements to report execution. So when I run a report, that report that was executed at that specific time will be temporarily stored until I run the report again. So if I were to run a report every Monday, that data would be stored from Monday until I run it the next Monday. So I can sort of compare and contrast, get that snapshot of a report for that specific day, and then get the fresh data as soon as I request it to be executed again. 3D visualization, like I said, this is really just an update to extend the support for specific CAD formats, these being NX, Parasolid, the new releases of Revit, Solid Edge, and SolidWorks for 2023. So what this allows us to do is when we import that CAD into our database, it will then be converted into viewables and then be accessible through the 3D viewer that is provided by 3D visualization. Alongside this, just a quick note on the responsive form designer. So through the new update, we have the ability to now add descriptions and help text to our responsive forms. So what the text that we have here below our field is the description field on the form editor. And this question mark is the help text that was added a few releases ago that is specified specifically on the property. So when I'm doing my item type definition, when I reach the property part number, I can modify the text that is displayed there, and then it will appear on our responsive form. All right, so with that, we're gonna hop into Aras and kind of poke around at some of this new functionality that was added. So first, we're gonna start looking at the responsive form designer. Let's take a quick look at how that is configured and built, and then we'll hop over to our reports and show you guys how to build a pretty cool report and dashboard. Alrighty, so first things first, I'm going to log into my Innovator environment. And so one tool that was added recently within Innovator was the ability to preset a start screen. In this case, we were able to pre-build a dashboard. This isn't necessarily the report we're looking to generate, but I thought it was a good note to keep it in my environment. Me, as an administrator of the system, I can log in as an admin, and I will gain access to this specific administrative dashboard. So I can keep track of all of our active projects, our project details, about a specific project, documents, and also if we're running a significant amount of conversion tasks, I can use this dashboard to keep track of those here. And this is specifically a report table that was generated to do so. However, we're going to start here with our responsive form designer. And to do that, we're going to start with the part item type. So for those of you that were here for our help text and tooltip demonstration from a couple of releases ago, this might be a review for you. For those of you that are new, this is some new functionality that was added a few releases back to kind of help your users navigate your system a bit better. So to begin, I'm going to edit my item type and locate the property that I'd like to modify. So our demonstration, so our example that I showed in my slideshow was focused on the part number. When I am editing the property for part number, I can navigate over to the help text column, select this, and include any text that I would like to. So let's go ahead and add another property to our form and sort of fill this out a bit. So we're going to focus on the name property, provide a quick help text. Is this one. Provide our users with a bit of information on how they really should be filling out the form. So go ahead and save that. Open up our views tab, head to our part form. So what we have here is our part form editor. Those of you who are familiar with previous versions of Aras will probably find this view a bit more familiar. But when we select our switch to responsive form, this is the kind of the future of Aras form generation. So what we have currently within our form is solely just our part number. So let's go ahead and fill out this form a bit more. And specifically, we want to include our name property that we have added some help text to. And for good measure, let's add a bit more detail to this form. In there. Name, our part number. We can include our revision. and our state. We'll call that good for now. So on each one of these fields, I have the ability to, one, if I want to go to my item type editor and edit my properties and add some help text, and we could specify that that's going to be explicitly inherited from that property. Same as the field label as well. So if I don't want that help text to appear on this specific iteration of the form, I have the ability to sort of turn that off directly from here, and our question mark for our help text will disappear. But if we want to also have a field description underneath each field, we have the ability to do that from the item type editor. So we don't have to go through the process of going to our properties and adding more tooltips. We can just do it directly from our view here. And I add some text here. Is determined by user. That description will then go ahead and be populated underneath. So now if I were to go and navigate to our part form, we now have a couple of fields here that we added, revision, our current state. Then we also have not only our description, but we also have our help text. And if there were, quite a bit of documentation around how to fill out some of these fields, this help text screen will allow me to expand it and show as much text as really is needed to describe what we need to do in that specific field. So if there's a specific convention to name components that are assemblies or individual components or certain classifications of part within your environment, this could all be specified through a help text right here. All right, so with that, we're going to move on to our next topic, and that's sort of our star of the show today, and that is going to be creating a report. All right. So we've already poked around at dashboards a bit, but I want to sort of show a sample of what we want to accomplish with this demonstration. So if we were to open up my dashboards, search this up, and take a look at the dashboard called All ECOs, we have ourselves a pretty well thought out dashboard that shows us a good amount of information here. So at the top of our dashboard, we have a few widgets here showing us a few different types of charts. And at the bottom, we have our raw report data that was pulled out of Aras. So we are able to specify specific properties to pull out and then make use of this data to create charts. So our first step to recreate this dashboard is going to be to recreate this report. So to do that, we can go ahead to our reports item. That's going to be underneath My Innovator and create a new report. So first things first, we're going to name our report. And this is going to be All ECOs. We're going to specify our context item. So in this case, we'll go to Change Management, select ECOs, and then we will quickly specify a description. All right, so once we specify our specific context item, and once we specify a specific query definition around that context item, those report fields will be automatically pulled in based off of the Aras query definition. One thing we will need to fill out a little bit more is something known as report aggregations. These are tools to help us, make or aggregate data, which is obvious enough. So specifically, if I wanted to select a specific field, for this case, we'll use something that is sort of involved in every single ECO. So we know for sure that every single ECO contains an item number. We can specify that when we are running our report, there's going to be some sort of aggregator to count each instance of an item number that is generated with this report. So we also have the ability to specify filters for our report. So if we want to, we can filter by a specific value of a specific field. That won't be necessary to replicate our report today. Then we also have the ability to specify which identities users this report will be shared with. So for example, for this report, for the sake of demonstration, we want all users in the system to be able to get status updates on ECOs. So all people in the world are able to view this specific report. But if there's certain identities that need to, say, manage this report, update it, modify which fields appear on that specific report, we can say maybe let's go with say our dashboard admin users. They will have the ability to go ahead and be editors within this report. And then for good measure, just to make sure I don't get locked out of this, I'm going to have my admin identity as well as an editor. Okay, so now at this point, we can go ahead and take this specific report and then develop a dashboard based off of the information that we just did. So if we were to head to our report preview tab, we can sort of get an idea of what information is being pulled out of this specific report. When I'm in edit mode, I can make sure that, say, if we want the title bar to be expanded a little bit more, and maybe the priority number doesn't need to be as large, or ECO states or identity name, just sort of clean this up a little bit to make sure we are not missing any information and it all fits on the screen. When I click done, those column edits, the sizes of each of those columns will go ahead and be saved so we can format that report however we want. All right, at this point, we're gonna go ahead and now create a new dashboard to mimic the one that we were sort of looking at earlier. We're gonna name this one ECO dashboard. Click done to allow us to access our dashboard editor. And now this is where we can go ahead and populate our dashboard with some widgets. So the first widget I'd like to introduce is our report table widget. What this is going to do is give us that table view and show us all the data that we're pulling into these charts. So we can go ahead, specifically edit. We can specify height and width, but that's something we can also do by dragging and resizing. So we're going to save that for later. And let's go ahead, specify we want our all ECO2 report. So when we first add a report to a dashboard, it's going to ask you to generate some results. So let's go ahead and do that. And now we have access to all the results that were pulled in from our report. And then another thing to note, whenever a report is specifically generated, it's going to display the data of that specific time when I click that button. So January 16th, 2024, we know that this report was ran at 1:20. If this data is out of date, I can go ahead and click on this button here and generate more current results to make sure that we're as up to date as we can with our report. So now if we wanted to add some more graphics to make this report a little bit more interactive, we can go ahead and select that we want a report chart widget from our templates here and start making some adjustments to this. So specifically, we want this report chart widget to be based off of our all ECOs2 report. We specifically want a column chart, and we also specifically would want to count based off of our item number. So in this case, we want a report that is going to show us all ECOs and filter them by who specifically is our change coordinator. This will allow us to get a quick view at who's really handling the brunt of our change processes, see if we need to rebalance the load, and so on. So we are able to access those specific properties that are pulled in from the report. And in this case, we want to create our chart based off of the category of our keyed name of the identity that is the change coordinator. So as soon as I click OK, it's going to generate a fresh chart showing us, one, the count of all the ECOs that each specific user is currently responsible for. So obviously Mike Miller is currently handling the load with the lead of 14-4. So in this case, we have more information on how to rebalance who the change coordinators are going to be moving forward. So we're going to add a few more charts here just to fill this out and get it a little more robust. So we'll drag and drop a few more charts in. There we go. And for our next chart, let's go and give ourselves a graphical representation of what state each one of our ECOs are in. So if is it released, or is it in work, is it in review, and so on. So let's create our new chart. We can specify our report here. We can display this in a bunch of different ways. So a pie chart, a donut chart, any one of those would probably be a good view of this. But let's go ahead and take a look at donut chart. We're going to count based off of our item number, and the specific category we want to put on this chart is the status of our Express ECO. So in this case, in our environment, we have 13 that are currently released, and we still have 5 ECOs that are presently in work. And then one last chart here, we're going to show how to make a pie chart. So we're going to sort our ECOs by priority. Once again, we'll pull in all ECOs, display this as a pie chart. We're going to count, and then we're going to sort on our priority. So out of the box, we have a few different ways of visualizing data. So by default, we're using the qualitative 1 color scheme, but there's plenty of different color palettes that we can incorporate that are out of the box, and more can be created as well. So with that, that is our demonstration of dashboarding and Aras reporting. With that, we can move back to the slide deck and continue. So before we get to questions and answers, I just have a couple more things I want to cover. And that is going to be the upcoming releases or previous releases that have reached end of life in the past couple months or will in the next couple months as well. So all releases that are end of life are currently those that are version 12 SP16 and older. Those are also including version Innovator 11, and those of you on 10 and older, impressive. We're also looking at 12 SP17 that was end of life in November of last year. And then at the end of this month, the last release of version 12 will be reaching end of life. And how time does fly. We started Tech Tuesday right around the start of release 14. So coming soon to reach end of life will be the first 3 releases of 14 plus. So those of you that had your upgrade right away, as soon as the new release structure came through, if you weren't keeping up on your self upgrades, that's something you should start to talk to your partner, your reseller partner with, contact Aras support or Razorleaf support as well. And we can start helping you out with getting your self upgrade process going so you can maintain an environment that's within the end of life window. So those of you may be asking yourself, what is that end of life window? So with 30 months after an Aras Innovator release, that release will be deemed end of life. So for example, release 14 came out around November of 2021. So that end of life date is going to be coming up here within this year. And that end of life date is going to be the last day of the designated month. So for 12 SP18 January, that'll be the last day of January will be the last day of support for 12 SP18. So upon reaching that end of life state, Aras will no longer be obligated to provide support for release. Their stance on it so far has been pretty flexible, but as we get further and further out, they have the option, of course, to refuse to support a version that is well out of end of life. So with that, I'll move on to questions and answers about what was covered today.
Great, thanks, Milan. That was a good presentation, good demonstration there. Okay, anybody have any questions? Just please put them in the questions panel and we'll take them. Give it a minute. Okay, got one question here. What are the key differences between using a tool like Aras Self-Service Reports and this new Aras reporting app?
Yeah, so I think one of the big differences between self-service reporting and the new Aras reporting app is that, well, one, self-service reporting was sort of built on an external application in a sense. So those were supported by something known as Izenda reports, while the new Aras reporting are specifically just item types within the Aras system. So that's one plus. The UI is much more familiar. When instead of creating reports and having to do some sort of custom CSS to rearrange things and things of that nature, I've personally done a deep dive into self-service report, trying to reformat those charts and make things fit a lot better. One thing I've seen already with this new interactive dashboards and reporting is the drag and drop functionality makes things so much easier to customize and so on. So the report definition is really about the same load between self-service and the new reporting application. The real key is the ease of use once that report is defined to format it, create new graphics, and so on. And the new reporting app also makes it really easy to export that chart to a CSV, something I didn't really show, but alongside that button where we were previewing our table, we can also export that to a CSV document and send it off to another system as needed.
Okay, great. Thank you. You were talking about end of life. What are the risks of maintaining an Aras environment that is past its end of life date?
Yeah, so this is something I touched on relatively briefly, but when you're past that 30-month window, Aras is not really, has no obligation to support your environment. They've been, like I said, pretty flexible to maintain that support and help with upgrades and so on. But as you get further and further out, you're not going to be as supported. Aras won't be providing hot fixes for those releases, or if it's something that is a bug within the system, that they're not obligated to fix that bug after that 30-month window. So your best bet really is to stay up on your upgrades, make sure you're within that support window. So really there's no risk. If you guys run into issues, Aras support will be able to take care of you. Not saying that they won't at this moment, but our best recommendation coming from Razorleaf is to get into that upgrade queue as soon as you possibly can. So to do that, reach out to Razorleaf support if you're a subscriber. If you are working with another reseller, reach out to them. If you're working out with Aras Direct, reach out to Aras as well.
Great. We got a question from Bob. Is there a tool to convert a classic form to a new responsive form?
Yeah, so that's something that we talked about at ACE. I think me and another fella from Razorleaf kind of got in touch with the self-service report product manager. At the moment, there's really no tool on the roadmap to migrate, say, a classic report or self-service report into the new Aras reporting tool. Really, it's just the report definition is pretty different. I mean, for the new Aras reporting app, we're using a query definition to pull in all the specific fields that we want. Self-service reporting is sort of along those lines, but when it comes to classic reports, it's pretty different. So due to the differences in how they're built, there's currently no migration plan between the different reporting types.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Milan. And looks like one last question here. How does Aras manage CAD that is not supported by the present release of this 3D visualization?
Yeah, so when it comes to CAD types that are supported, when we're talking about 3D visualization, that is specifically CAD types that are supported to be pulled into that 3D viewer. So say if you're, say, a version ahead of SolidWorks or some other tool, it's not like you won't be able to use Aras to manage your CAD tools. It'll function great as what Aras is good at. So managing your CAD, doing that sort of PDM functionality built into it. There would be no issues with that. But when it comes to actually making use of the 3D viewers, that will not be available to you until the next release of 3D visualization, or the release of 3D visualization that will incorporate that new version of CAD.
Okay, great. I think that covers our questions for today. Anyone else have anything they want to pop into the questions panel before we move on? You can always reach out to Milan directly, and he's happy to interact and support your questions either on LinkedIn and email. So.
Yep, always available.
Great.
Alrighty. Well, with that, we'll move into wrap up. So Julianne, I'll kick this off and I'll let you cover a little bit of what we're planning for. Sure. So first things first, our next Tech Tuesday, that's going to be covering release 30. That'll be on February 27th. And the main focus for that will be continued additions to the responsive form designer. So looking at the roadmap so far, we're looking at some potential big additions to responsive forms where we can start to get some of that classic form functionality back into responsive forms. So that should be a pretty good demo to show how we can make forms interact based off of our choices. So that'll be pretty cool. And then next thing will be the upcoming Aras ACE conference. That'll be March 4th to the 7th in Fort Worth, Texas. So you'll get the opportunity to meet with some Aras business leaders, Aras experts like us at Razorleaf, and also get to see some other people that are admins, users of the system like yourselves that are attending this webinar. So it's a really great event. I was able to go for the first time last year and learned a lot, and it was really great to see a lot of you in person. So looking forward to doing that again. So Julianne, if you want to take over from here and cover what we got planned, you can go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, the Aras conference, if you haven't been, it's one of the better, it's the best ACE user conference that we've attended, aside from the ones that we hold for our own users. But you know, it's a good opportunity to meet with a lot of different people across section of industries, and then with the Aras executive team to just kind of hear what's going on and the growth. And Aras has been in a big growth phase right now, and things are changing. So it's always a great place to get updates. My favorite session is Aras in the Round, which is when they give the opportunity for users to have ask a question and answer with their executives there, and have frank discussions. So it's a great event. We are also holding a dinner for our customers on Monday night, the opening night of the conference. So we invite our customers there, and you'll be hearing from us an email on that. Join us for dinner at the 𝙤𝙊𝙍𝙍𝙀, which is walking distance from the hotel. Yes, we look forward to seeing you there if you can be there. I believe early bird registration has passed, but suggest getting your reservations in as soon as you can. I think that covers it.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Well, we appreciate your time today. Thank you, Milan, for a great presentation. We will be sending this out in the recording in the next couple of days. And we will see you at the end of February for our next Tech Tuesday. And then very shortly after that, we'll be at the ACE conference. With that, have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.